Assalamu alaikum. How does Islamic law suggest that boys and girls or males and females get to know each other enough for marriage? What are the basic guidelines from the legal point of view for courtship in Islam? This is important because a lot of people have brought in tradition into this subject and made it difficult to know what the clear teachings of the Quran and Sunnah are. Firstly, let us understand that culture or custom has a special position in Sharia. Urf or Ada, it is called. And they are respected, culture is respected, so long as it doesn't contradict the Quran and the Sunnah. And different cultures have various methods of getting their young people married that are Sharia compliant. In other words, there are various cultural ways, norms that are all respectful of the rules of Sharia and that do not contradict Sharia. What is important to remember is that in all interactions and social transactions, what's called mu'amalat, a Muslim is allowed to do anything that is not prohibited when trying to get to know another person better, particularly for marriage, which itself is a sunnah that is encouraged. In some cultures, it's arranged marriages, where the young people trust the elder ones to decide for them, or at least to advise. And sometimes they allow relatives, friends to help them in finding partners. In more modern societies, in many cultures today, a lot of the young people are left with the responsibility of finding partners that are more compatible to them. People today have become more fussy than earlier generations probably were. What is most important is to ensure that 5 major ground rules are respected when it comes to trying to know the other person better. Number 1, that we should always ensure the purity of our intentions. That the intention of getting to know the other person is wholesome, it's pure, it's clean, it's not for the sake of exploitation, it's not for the sake of lust, but for the purpose of getting to know the other person better, whether for marriage or to work with them in Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar, in enjoining right and forbidding wrong, which the Prophet ﷺ, actually the Quran describes as one of those things that believers, male and female, are expected to do. So the purity of intentions. Secondly, that the purpose of meeting and getting to know each other should be halal, that is permissible and not something illegitimate. What is a good intention would not make something that is prohibited to be permissible. And so whether it's da'wah, whatever the purpose of getting to know the other person better, to share truth, to share guidance, to share better understanding mutually, the purpose of the meeting should be halal, it should be permissible, should be something that's permissible, and the intentions should be clear and clean. Thirdly, there should be no physical contact with each other. This is to prevent things from getting worse, to prevent emotions from coming into the way of better judgment. The Quran makes it clear a Muslim should not do anything that leads towards zina, leads towards sexual immorality. Fourth, that a Muslim should observe the Islamic teachings regarding modesty in dressing, modesty in behavior. That how you look at the person should be modest. No, be humble, lower our gazes. Don't look at the other person lustfully and dress in an appropriate manner. And fifth, that we should not be secluded in a closed, private place away from public view. The Prophet had no problem with meeting some women in public, in the eyes of the public, in the public view, even though it was a private discussion. However, a Muslim should not be alone with a woman he is not, that he is allowed to marry. A Muslim should not be alone, male or female, in a private or enclosed place away from public view. Once those things have been respected, the purity of intention, legitimacy of the purpose, modesty of dress, modesty of behavior, the not being in an enclosed place, no physical contact, then such an interaction would be considered permissible. But when trying to know somebody better for the purpose of marriage, of course a Muslim, and anyone for that matter, would be advised to consult wiser people who would know the other person better and know you better. To be careful about rushing into relationships, to try and read more on the subject. The Quran in chapter 42, Surah 42, verse 38, and in Surah 3, verse 159, encourage Muslims to always consult others in their affairs. The Quran encourages us to ask others on things we ourselves don't know. And so a Muslim is encouraged to seek the counsel of those who would know better. Go for premarital counseling courses. Ask for premarital advice from wiser Muslims or more elderly people who may give more valuable advice. And while we continue to pray for Allah's guidance through istikhara, we should always remember to tie our camels. It's not just to pray Allah to guide you in your choice, but to also go with your eyes open, consult, and follow all the other types of pieces of advice that the Quran and Sunnah has given us. And Allah knows best. Assalamu alaikum.